I'm very pleased to introduce Atul Kumar, who is a founding administrator of the Art Deco Mumbai Trust. He is the creator of a public directory dedicated to Mumbai's Art Deco, and he's particularly interested in the protection and in the conservation of the Art Deco district in South Mumbai and its inscription in the UNESCO World Heritage List. Today he will be talking about the influence of European artists on India's emerging modernity in the context of the 1925 exhibition. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My presentation is going to talk to you about the influence of European architects, artists, and designers who shaped modern Bombay and whose influence extended across India, beginning from the 1920s. While India did not participate in the exposition, it witnessed a growing modern art and cultural landscape that was dominated by European designers. Two big factors that facilitated this European influence was the princely connection and the support that the princely states gave to the style, and the second was Bombay as an arrival city, being the port that enabled it to connect to the world through shipping lines. And lastly, I'd like to leave you with a thought that while Art Deco has many expressions around the world, in Mumbai, it was Western in modernity and Indian in spirit. One Indian family dominated the adoption and expression of modernity and its arrival in India, and that was the Maharaja Yeshwantrao Holkar II of Indore. He lived a short life. He was born in 1908 and passed away in 1961 at the early age of 53. In these three images, I'd like to show you representation of different aspects of the man's personality. They are symbolic in their representation in that they are quite unusual for a Maharaja in the 1930s. The first portrait, as you can see, is of course the Maharaja dressed in traditional Indian wear with the turban, silk clothing, elaborate jewelry, and then those incredibly large diamonds which you can see on the top of his turban. At the same time, you can see in the picture in the middle where he was in Hawaii with his wife Maharani Sanyogita. It is extremely rare for a Maharaja to be photographed in swimwear, and while he may be excused, to present his wife, also dressed in swimwear and photographed in a public beach, is extremely unusual and actually shows how effortlessly they adopted Western norms. The third picture is a portrait of him by Bernard Morel. He was all of 21 in 1929. You can see his easy stance, his comfort in a classic Western tuxedo and a flowing cape. In 25, the year of the exposition, the Maharaja was just 17 years old. The picture on the left is particularly interesting. You see here Eckhart Muthesius, who became Holkar's friend, guide, mentor, and chief designer, who designed his palace called the Manik Bagh in his home city of Indore in Madhya Pradesh in India. Muthesius and the Maharaja met when he was at Oxford as a student, and their friendship blossomed from there and lasted just a decade until Muthesius was asked to leave India during World War II. The picture is interesting because it is a reflection of how egalitarian this young Holkar was. Maharajas are rarely ever photographed with somebody sitting in front of them, and this shows him dressed in his traditional attire, at ease and quite comfortable to position Muthesius in front of him for this portrait. Such was the relationship of equals, his maturity of thought, the courage not to be shackled by tradition, and to exercise a free mind. On the right, you can see a pair of armchairs with integrated lighting that were also designed by Muthesius in 1931 for the Holkar Palace. The chair is mounted on an aluminum or possibly steel base. The photo is credited to the Museum of Decorative Arts, and I hope we have a better context should we get to see them at the museum when we visit. Here's a quick glimpse of his bedroom in the palace. You can see at the top left a recliner chair with leopard skin, which was designed by Corbusier, Pierre Jeanneret, and Charlotte Perriand for Holkar's bedroom. On the right, also done in a very modern style, I'd like you to look at the canopy above the bed, which I think is made in colorcrete, which is cement mixed with a color pigment or possibly plaster, steel trimming, vibrant colors, and a bookshelf. No Maharaja can be seen without tiger and leopard skin hunting trophies adorning his room, so you have the obligatory picture. Lalik contributed a significant amount of work to the palace in Indore. On the left, you can see Louis Sugno and Shalo Ali's chrome-plated metal bed for the Maharaja, and on the right, you can see the carpet done in bold geometric design with a gorgeous color palette designed by Ivan de Silva Bruns, with his signature on the bottom. Lalik was also commissioned in 1929 on the occasion of Gandhi's 60th birthday to make a commemorative paperweight, which you can see at the top left in the middle. The artists and designers of Manik Bagh came from across Europe. Such was the reach of Mutesius's Rolodex that he was able to access the finest avant-garde designers, often introduced by art dealer Henri Pierre Roche. Undoubtedly, Holkar's unlimited budgets and free creative license were also a big draw. As you can see here, there's representation from many European countries: Hungary, France, Romania, Germany, and of course then there's US, Brazil, and Ireland. And mind you, this was just one prince who accessed so many designers, brought them to India, and commissioned them to do works for his palace, his homes across the world. Mutesius himself came from an illustrious background, as his father, Hermann, was an influential name in the modern architectural movement in Germany. There is an obvious omission from the list in this page: the absence of any British architect. Despite his young age, Maharaja Holkar was an astute thinker. He negotiated an uneasy truce with the British, his colonial masters, clearly making his preference known for his independence. In British correspondence, he was often described as an untamed Maharaja, since he was not exactly pliable, nor was he open to negotiation and submission. It is contended that the British omission was deliberate. Among the many designers who came to India was also Stefan Noblin, a Polish artist who I'm sure many of you are familiar with his work. This is a classic picturization from Indian mythology. Observe the wings above the horses to emphasize speed, and the way the cape of the charioteer is billowing behind him, catching the wind. And of course, the classic Art Deco stylized sunburst in the backdrop. Noblin did this work for the Morvi Palace in Gujarat. And here again, I'm drawing parallels between royal patronage and the arrival of work by European artists. The Morvi Palace was completed in 1940, and you can see how elegantly modern it looked with barely any ethnic representation or references. In fact, you might even imagine this was not in a princely palace in India, but probably in a property in Europe. You can see this richly adorned fireplace done in black and white marble, and the mural done by Noblin. It shows an image of a partly nude woman who is hunting deer. The presentation is modern and chic. The bar at the Morvi Palace is a widely celebrated one, the image again taken from Indian mythology. In the backdrop, nymphs are seen celebrating, lightly dressed. A century later, this would today be considered inappropriate. You can see the melding of both Western culture and Indian spirit. In 2018, UNESCO inscribed the Victorian Gothic and Art Deco ensembles of Mumbai as a World Heritage Site. They stated that the nominated property created a formidable architectural dialect, Western in form but Indian in spirit, as an example of shared heritage. While they were referring to the architectural form, I like to think that this is equally applicable to the kind of work that was done by European designers and reflected in this design of the bar. They molded Western design with an Indian sensibility. While the princely families were building these modern palaces in their kingdoms, they were equally drawn to Bombay. Its modern cosmopolitanism, its jazz bars and restaurants, and the relative anonymity afforded by the city allowed them to do away with the trappings of being a royal. They did build their palaces in Bombay, but these were modern homes. And here you see two images. On the left, you can see what is called Dhanraj Mahal, built by Gregson, Batley, and King for the Maharaja Dhanrajgir of Hyderabad. On the right, you can see Darya Mahal, which was built for the Maharaja of Kutch by Indian architects Bhedwar and Bhedwar. While they're both Art Deco, you can see the contrast in the styles between a British architect and an Indian architect. The one on the left by Gregson, Batley, and King is imposing and colonial with its large full footprint, while the one on the right by Bhedwar is modern, sleek, and more classic in terms of its Art Deco representation. Bombay was the arrival city by virtue of being a port, and it emerged as a productive space of cooperation that was mutually beneficial and transformative. Artists came to Bombay from across the world. In this image, you can see Marine Drive, a prominent landmark which is a sea-facing panorama, also called the Queen's Necklace. It has 35 Art Deco buildings in a row of even height, which are massed uniformly to create a stunning skyline. Karl Schara, of whom many of you know, was a Czech artist who came to Bombay possibly in the early 1930s. You can see the image of him as a young man in his military uniform during World War I. And what is particularly interesting is to see his transformation at the Church of St. Ignatius in Bombay almost two decades later. He's dressed in shorts with a vest and a bandana, with local artisans and labor working on the interior of the church. Clearly, this was his calling. He is better known for his work at the Regal Cinema and Art Deco Picture Palace, which you can see on the top right. This cinema was designed by architect Charles Stevens, who was ironically son of the Gothic master Frederick Stevens. And you can see the stunning interiors that Schara created, again, in classic Art Deco style. I'll preempt a question here. This interior has changed considerably and doesn't exist anymore. The interiors of Bombay homes represented a tremendous opportunity, as thousands of apartments were built on reclaimed land. All of them were built RCC and came up across the length and the breadth of the city. Apartment-style living, a new way of living, created a pressing demand for furniture and furnishings for these apartments. The Kamdar family became the chief suppliers of furniture for thousands of homes. They hired Ernst F. Messerschmitt to become the chief designer at Kamdar Limited. And interestingly enough, he came to India to work first at Manik Bagh for Maharaja Holkar in 1931, and then was called by the Kamdar family in 1945-46 to Bombay. On the left, you can see an elegant car showroom that he designed, and on the right, a modern bedroom. See the stark simplicity and minimalism, and the canopy above the bed, much more modest than the one that I showed you at Maharaja Holkar's bedroom. Bombay was an important Asian port for political refugees and emigre artists in the interwar period. Not only was its landscape influenced by European designers and artists, but so was its cultural landscape. Emigres like Walter Langhammer, Emanuel Schlesinger, and Rudy von Leyden were influential persons. Langhammer was the Times of India art director. Schlesinger was a patron and collector of the arts and a very wealthy man. Rudy von Leyden was the critic for the Times of India, the art critic. So collectively, they were able to engage with city residents to create a dialogue and present Western sensibilities. They supported Indian artists and what has famously been recognized as the Bombay Progressive Artists Group, which initially comprised 5 of India's most famous modern painters. The influence of Langhammer and von Leyden gave the progressives a certain legitimacy and a recognition that has made them world famous. In this slide, you can see the abstract works of S.H. Raza on the top left, and Maqbool Fida Hussain with his famous horses on the bottom left. All of these works by these artists now trade at international auction houses for astronomical amounts. I'd like to end by highlighting that Bombay's modernity still survives and is represented in every typology, including at the top left an apartment building, which is residential, which is built in 1941, the iconic Eros Cinema to your right, which was built in 38, and the New India Assurance office building at the bottom left. All three were designed and built for Indians by Indian architects, each with its own architectural identity, which I'm sure you can appreciate. Such was the impact of the style that in the last decade, we have now documented 1,523 buildings across the length and breadth of the city. You can see on the map that the historic old city began in the southern tip with an unparalleled density. But as you move northward beyond the midsection of the city, Art Deco starts to thin out as those neighborhoods came up subsequently. I'd like to close with this quote from a very respected Indian architect who we lost during COVID. As we present modernity at these lectures, I think this thought will resonate with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was fascinating. Do we have any questions in the audience? Yeah. Over here. Ah, sorry.
Good morning. I didn't want to miss this opportunity. I'm George Neary from the Miami Design Preservation League, and we just completed Art Deco Alive, which was a celebration of the relationship between architecture in Miami Beach and Mumbai. So I just wanted to add that it's as current as this exact moment where we're highlighting the beauties and the wonder of India. We had also talks on Bombay and but all that architecture. So I want to salute you and say how wonderful it is that you're keeping all of this alive and on the World Heritage Site and so many wonderful things. And for everyone, again, it's as alive as today. Thank you.
Thank you, George. We have curated an exhibition which will open in Mumbai at the Bagh Museum on the 6th of November, and it will run for 3 weeks. This again is a juxtaposition of Miami and Mumbai, as George just explained. So if you're visiting, please do come by. We'd be happy to take you on a tour.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Did any of the Art Deco influence go into Delhi for any of the public buildings there?
Yes, it did. So it's not just Delhi, it's across the metro cities of India. It's in Chennai, which was formerly called Madras. There's a lot of Art Deco in Calcutta. There's also Art Deco in Bangalore, and interestingly, in smaller towns across the country. So pervasive was the style. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that if we had to identify one dominant architectural style in the country, it would probably be Art Deco.
Thank you. We have another question upstairs on the balcony.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. Just a note of information, a few years ago there was a documentary done by the Polish government. They sent conservators to fix up some of the palaces that Norblin had worked on. If you can access YouTube, there is about an hour-long presentation on Stefan Norblin and India, so just for the general information. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. We have seen that.
We had at this Museum of Modern Art like a few years ago, a very nice exhibition about the Maharaja of Indore. It was really incredible. I wanted to ask you, there was no World's Fair in India? There was no
no, interestingly, there wasn't. And
international, I mean something, maybe not World's Fair, but like exhibitions we could have really been important.
No, there never has been one, interestingly. We jumped straight into, the frenzy of doing expos for trade and commerce. as far as India's omission from being present in Paris in 1925, I think it's because we were colonized and those decisions were not made by an independent country. So there was representation only through the British, and maybe that's why we didn't come here.
Okay. But I was thinking that maybe in India, like interstates, something could have been organized within India.
Within India also, we have local exhibitions, but nothing at a national level where we integrate architecture and its development across the country. That's a good idea, Pascal. Maybe we should.
Thank you.
There's another question upstairs, right?
Okay.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
I think we don't properly hear you. Is there a microphone upstairs?
Yes, yes, there is. Thank you, Atul. I was rather surprised. This may be more of a comment than a question, but I was rather surprised that it seemed that the thread of Art Deco between Europe and India. There was really nothing that came through the UK. It seemed to all come through other European architects, even within the vast fabric of Mumbai, not just the Maharaja's palaces. Is that fair to say? It seems like Art Deco grew in India despite the British colonization. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point you raised, because India became independent in 1947. So this style came up despite the fact that we were colonized, and as we know, the politics of architecture, particularly in the British Empire, was a fairly powerful and influential tool, which they used to create some of the most beautiful Victorian Gothic ensembles in Bombay. But having said that, we've never really fully understood, except by inference, how come they allowed this style to develop so rapidly across the city and define itself. The only contention that we can find in research material is that they consider it, and quote unquote, a lesser architecture. So therefore it was probably not a threat.
Were the architects in Mumbai, the Indian architects, were they educated in Western schools or locally educated?
They were all locally educated at the JJ School of Arts, which is now called the JJ School of Architecture. But because Bombay was a port city, they all had access to the shipping lines. And so a lot of them traveled to England to the Royal College of Arts and also became members of the RIBA. And I guess enhanced their practice and came back on these Art Deco streamliners and populated the city with the style.
Good morning. My name is Gio Darter, board member of the Miami Design Preservation League, and it's loud enough, thank you. Preservation League, and also blessed to have been able to host 2 World Congresses. My question to you is, I noticed that you have designated 1,500 Art Deco structures in Mumbai. Are you planning at any point to do a architectural guide of this incredible study that you've done? The fact is that Mumbai is becoming very, in India, very sought after now for your heritage, as you just mentioned with the UNESCO, and it's a great fact that you are, I believe, the first to receive that in the Art Deco style, which I congratulate you. Do you have any plans to create a guide with those designated buildings?
Yes, so our website actually has something similar to what Pascal just showed us earlier, the map of, he's covered an entire country, and he's covered France, we're just covering Bombay. But our website does have this inventory online, which you can access across digital devices, including your phone. And we also conduct walking tours on a regular basis. So if you happen to be visiting, there's lots to do through us.
Thank you.
And sorry, if I may just quickly add, that was a very good point you raised, because there has never been recognition of modern heritage as a World Heritage Site. So in 2018, Mumbai kind of was, set the standard there by actually designating an entire precinct comprising of 72 buildings of Art Deco as a World Heritage Site. So I think there's a lot of hope for all of us there in the recognition of this style, despite it, not meeting the criteria of strictly being heritage as in more than 100 years old, and not having the legacy of being what is conventionally defined as old.
Thank you. I think we might have the time for 2 questions, and then we continue with the...
Hi, thank you very much. That was awesome. I had a question about Marina Drive that you called in Mumbai. Are the colors still pastel, and does it still kind of look the same as, is it intact? And then I also just wanted to tell you that I had 2 Indians who work in San Francisco who were from Mumbai, and I told them about your society because they were fascinated by Art Deco in San Francisco, and they didn't know about much Art Deco in Mumbai, and I told them to get in touch with your society and take a walking tour.
Thank you for that. I think it's always encouraging when a Californian tells a guy from Bombay, hey, go see your Art Deco. Yeah, so it's been I'm sorry, what was the first part of your question?
It was about Marina Drive. Is
Yeah,
it still
so
pastel, or the colors still there, or has it kind of degraded?
No, the colors are still intact, and I would love for you to come over and have a look. But having said that, they're all typically two-toned buildings, not like the decorative style in Miami, which is a whole range of color palette reflected on each property, but they're off-white backgrounds and with a darker highlight, which is typically in maroon, red, or green.
Yeah, maybe a closing question. We've had Tropical Deco conferences in Havana and Argentina. Do you think, are there any plans afoot for a Congress in Mumbai?
Well, thank you for that. It's been the single most asked question of me in the last 4 days. And they don't even want to know my name. They just want to know, are you doing it in Bombay in 29? And my stock reply right now is that after what Paris Art Deco Society and Pascal have put up here, it's going to be a hard act to beat. So yeah, congratulations to the entire team over here. It's truly been outstanding. And then we saw Joe's incredible video presentation on Chicago in 27, so maybe I can come back to you next year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you
so
very much
much.
for your work.